Ahoy, visitors of virtual world. Long time no see. Do you know what time is it? It's PC building time. So let's get to it, shall we? Legend. Antennas. The motherboard itself, nicely packed. Some papers. The SATA cable. Thermometer. External one, so you can measure temperature inside your case at a certain location. Some notices, logo strips, a keycap, a sticker, and a quick installation guide. Yeah, maybe not as quick as you would think. And this is around AMD EXPO, and there is also some manuals. Yeah, and here we are. A lot of USB ports. Back side of it, so this is it. So the next one is our CPU. Ryzen 9800 X3D. This is gonna be good, I believe that. It should be. So we will test this later. Let's just unpack it now. It's really hard to do this. Now, let's be careful not to drop it, because when I was installing a CPU to my friend's system, actually I dropped it, but let's not do it this time. Okay. Some nice stickers in here, the CPU itself. Again, some installation guide, probably some recommendation how to apply the thermal paste, and just how to socket it. And here we are, the sticker and the CPU itself. I'm not gonna to take it out. I'm going to take it out when we are going to install it actually. No pins on this one, so the pins are in the socket, which is good. Like, you have less worries that you break it when you are handling it. Yeah, so that's good. Now, let's open this NVMe SSD drive. 4 terabytes of storage, and it says 7300 megabytes per second read. Yeah, so it shouldn't be too shabby. 4 terabytes is actually very good to have nowadays, because the size of the games are quite high. So let's unbox this one. This is the way I like to unbox it. Okay, let's be careful not to drop it again. So here it is. Yeah. We will install it later. Now we will unbox RAMs. So it's DDR5 RAM with a splash of RGB. Let's unbox it. So it's from G.SKILL, by the way. Cut without cutting my fingers. Alright, let's pull it out. Nice. Here we are. Yeah, I have to approach it from the correct side, and here we are. Yeah. Again, you can see some specs. The sticker, it says AMD EXPO ready. It's quite heavy. The cooling on it is probably, yeah, it's good. Okay, let's look at the CPU cooler now. So this is my first time going with liquid cooling. So I'm really excited to see what it can do with the temperatures and how it will look like. Yeah, now you can see a hint of my theme. It's white, and so my PC case is going to be white as well. I'm aiming for white components. So we have some accessories with it. But there is also an Arctic MX6 paste included in it, so please don't buy it. I accidentally bought it. I didn't know it's already included, and I bought extra one, which is unnecessary. Anyways, there are some screws and whatever, some cables for the fans, I guess. All right. So this is what goes to the CPU. I'm gonna guess this is a cooler you put on top of it once you installed this bit. The plastic bag was covering it, so now you can see it better. There's also a sticker still here. Let's not forget to remove this, and they have some proprietary connector under here. Okay, pull these things out. Wow, it's quite heavy. It's really heavy. What do we have in this box? Let's check. With some kind of razor or spacer. Alright, nice. It's quite heavy. Wow. 3 fans. Let's check out the power supply. 750 watts. And this should be enough for me. And this connector I was talking about, this is a 12 volt 2x6 pin cable connector, which the NVIDIA GPUs nowadays need, some of them. Some user manual. Now again, we have some Velcro strips and some cable ties and some screws for the power cable. And a bunch of cables and accessories in here. But firstly, let's check out the PSU itself. Oh. So it's nicely packed again. Yeah. Special connector for NVIDIA GPUs can support up to 450 watts on my PSU unit, but it's rated up to 600 watts usually if you have a more powerful PSU with higher wattage. For me, a 750 is enough, and yeah, it's completely modular, as you can see. There is this special button, it says hybrid mode. If it's pushed in, you need to push it in, it will stay pushed in. Then the fan can go into like passive mode, which means that it will be turned off. So if the power load is not high and the PSU is not heating up too much, then the fan turns off, which makes your PC case quieter. Now let's see what do we have in this nice bag. A bunch of cables that are really heavy. So I guess here's the summary of it, in case the details being there. Otherwise, a bunch of like cables that you need to connect to your motherboard and CPU and graphic cards. I believe some SATA cables as well. That's it. I'm building a full ATX case this time, although this case it's on the smaller side and it can still accommodate like basically any GPU you put into it. So it's good for the future. If I don't want to change my case in the future, I don't need to. Let's look at it. Here we are. Now let's see what's inside of it. It has some ports over here. Okay, so USB-C port, some audio jack, power button, and 2 USB 3.0 ports here. It has thumb screws, which is like nice, but these thumb screws are for screwing, like for removing this panel. It's its own compartment for the PSU. It's actually below the PSU. They left this space here for better cooling, so you have more space to get the air in and up into the case. And here is this glass panel that's very easily removable, like this. Okay. Here's the manual. Now it has two inbuilt fans at the bottom and then two at the front. These front ones are RGB. This panel should be easily removable as well, right? Like this. I just had to put my finger here into this little crevice. And that's about it. We will look at it more closely during our build. But so far, this is it. Here goes the PCU. It's a little bit unusual. It's at the front, usually it's at the back. But this gives like more space for the GPU to breathe. As I said, because of this compartment here and these two fans, there's enough space to pull in air and up the case. So sometimes you want to update the BIOS on your motherboard before you install the CPU, because the motherboard might not support the latest CPUs yet. And at the time you bought it, it did not have the latest BIOS installed. So here I'm going to show you how you can update this BIOS, actually following the manual of ASROCK motherboard manufacturer for my specific motherboard. So I already downloaded the BIOS and renamed it and put it into this USB drive. And what we are going to need, except of the newest BIOS, is PSU, power cable, the motherboard power connectors, and your motherboard. And it's quite easy to connect these cables. On this PSU it's specifically says motherboard. So the cables I should connect exactly here. Okay, after you connected the cables, make sure that they are fully seated. Okay, there is no gap between the pins of the connector and the PSU. Here you should connect the PSU power cable. It can go only one way, because if you check out the pins, you can see that they have slightly different shape, and it matches the shape of the connector on the motherboard. So it can go only one way. And again, you have to make sure it's fully seated. Okay, there is no gap between the connector and the cable, between these two connectors. And then of course the last step is plug in your PSU into the power socket and make sure that the PSU is turned on. I believe this is on state. Yes. So as soon as I switch that button or switch that switch, the motherboard come alive. Now you just need to stick the USB into the correct USB port for flashing, and here's a BIOS flashback button, which according to the manual I should hold for 3 seconds. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, actually here is the diode and it's blinking, which means the BIOS is updating. It should not, I repeat, it should not turn solid green without blinking. In that case, something is bad. That's what the manual says anyways. So I'm going to wait for this to finish, and even after it stops blinking, I will leave it like this for a few minutes just to be extra safe. And after that, the BIOS should be updated. So first of all, let's mount this PCIe 4.0 NVMe M.2 SSD drive. And there are 3 positions on the motherboard. I could mount this under this big heatsink. Here is a PCIe 5.0 slot. Our drive is only 4.0, so we don't necessarily need that position. And there are 2 more PCIe 4.0 slots over here. And based on my case, and that the fact that at the bottom I have 2 fans that will be pulling air, fresh air from the bottom and pushing it up. And the fact that the graphic card is going to be mounted into this PCIe 5 express slot over here, then I'm going to mount my SSD drive here, away from all the heat, and it will be still getting fresh air from the fan at the bottom. What we need to do is unscrew this long heatsink. Okay, that should be it. Then let's pick up our SSD drive, and we need to just slot it into this slot over here. I don't know if I can show you nicely. It's just going to be slotted in here. Okay, just like this. Just gently push it in with a little bit of force. It's going to stick out like this, so you need to push it down, and it should fit in here. If it does not fit, does not sit well, then you need to push it in a little bit more. And it's not working, maybe. Okay, because I need to put this locking mechanism into its default position. Yes, then it's going down, and I can just lock it clockwise in. So no need for screws over here. And just like this, it is locked in. Next step is putting back the heatsink, but be careful because there are some tapes on the other side. which are protecting this thermal paste under it. So I need to remove it, right? So now the thermal paste is exposed, and this thermal paste will be on top of my SSD drive, cooling it. Let's put it back on top of it, and let's gently screw it in. Be sure not to over tighten the screws. I mean, SSDs can bend a little bit, but you don't really want to bend them too much. So just be gentle with the screwing, okay? Don't push too much force on it. It's solid, it does not move anywhere, even though I did not apply a lot of force at all, or I didn't apply any force at all. Yeah. Now what you could do at this point is remove all the other protective layers from the board. If you're not afraid that you are going to scratch them anymore, and just not to forget to remove them, you can just remove them. There's one over here as well, and a small one over here, and I'm going to remove the one from the back plate. I guess now. I don't want to forget to remove it later. That would suck. And that's that. Now we are going to mount our CPU. Let's gently open it. Here it is in its full glory. And we will leave it on the table just like this for now, because what we need to do is open this socket. So you need to push it down and pull it aside, and then just open it like this, and there are the pins. And now you have to be very careful. So there is this little triangle at this side, as you can see, and I have to align this triangle with the little triangle on the CPU itself, which is in this corner. Alright, so I'm going to pick it up, rotate it around. Alright, so here's the triangle, here is the other one, and just gently put it down. Actually, it's quite heavy. I forgot how heavy these things can be. And it's in there, just like this. So it seems that it is at the correct position. Now what we need to do is just close it down. Okay. No. So let's push down this lever. You need to apply a little bit of force. Yeah, just like this. You might be a little bit afraid when you're pushing it down, because I needed to apply quite a lot of force to push it down, but maybe it's just because I'm doing it on this cardboard box and it's sinking when I'm pushing down on it. But the processor seems to be installed now. Let's mount the PSU, power supply unit, into the case now. So let's get rid of the panel. We will not need it for a long time, so we can put it away to a safe place. We can actually remove the other side of the case as well. Again, here is a little opening that you can put your finger into it and just pop the side panel off. This case supports like different layouts. You can check it out on the net, I believe, or in this manual, but I'm not going to I'm going to stick with the default layout. Here are some included accessories as well. We can actually open this side compartment. The thumb screws should work. If they do not, you can still use a screwdriver. The bottom one is quite tight, so I think I need a screwdriver for that. I couldn't unscrew it with my hand, unfortunately. Now, alright, so we can put aside the side panel as well. We are not going to use it right now. So here is the bottom compartment. We will mount the PSU over here. Here is a power extension cable that connects the PSU socket to this one. Now I have to get out this box. Okay. Be careful with knives. Okay. Maybe use scissors instead of a knife, that would be safer. Here is a little box with some accessories in it, a bunch of screws, some cable ties, Velcro strips. I don't know what's this. Okay, you can use it as a spacer. And let's get the PSU. Here it is. It's going to sit actually over here inside of this cage. There are a bunch of cables over here pre-routed. We can leave them as they are right now because they are not in a way, I believe. Okay, maybe this one is a little bit in a way, and we should redo this later. But I need to put it like the other way around. So again, we are going to suck fresh air from the bottom. There is also a filter, by the way, at the bottom of this case that can be easily removed and cleaned. Let's keep it there for now. I need to put the PSU in here, but a bunch of cables are in my way, so I actually have to open this Velcro. And slide. The PSU inside. And it should sit on these little spacers. Now I just have to screw it in. You can see that this is actually in the way right now. So I have to somehow unmount it. Okay, thank you. Push it back in. And here are the holes for the screws somewhere. So again, it has to sit on this spacer. You can see it from this side. And there is one on the other side as well. So it creates a space between on the side or the bottom of the case. Yeah. Push it in. I just have to get the correct screws from the box of the PSU. So I found a bag with the screws that we are going to use. A bunch of cable ties again and Velcro strip. Okay. Okay, the screws are tightened. Almost. The screws are tight now. Make sure you push this button in. If it's in, the PSU can work in hybrid mode, which means that under low load or on the low temperatures, the fan will actually stop spinning, which is what we want, because less fans, less noise. Now let's see what we can do with the cable. Okay, I guess we can have it like this, I suppose, as well. Because if I would want to somehow save space on the other side, I cannot, of course. So the only way to make this work is having it like this, and that's fine. Yeah, nice and well. You can turn it on. Now if we check it from the other side, it seems we are well prepared. Now we are going to mount the motherboard, because I'm afraid that if I would mount the liquid AIO radiator first up here, then I would not be able to get to the motherboard and to mount it. So now we are going to mount the motherboard. So I'm here back from the future. There are 9 spots to mount the motherboard, but on this motherboard there is one more space or screw hole that we could use, which was one of them here, and by default this case does not have a hole for the screw on this place, but it has a spare part and we can add it there, and I will add it there, and we will make this motherboard sit even more stable. And I guess it's a good idea to add it down there, because this is the place where the graphic card sits. So just for extra rigidity, extra stability, I'm going to add this 10th screw hole and the screw. Of course, you need to align it well, right? So the I/O port needs to be, of course, at the back, right? So just let's try to manipulate this very gently. Okay. Actually, it seems it is exactly where it needs to be. Just like that. So it's sitting on those spacers for the screws, and all the holes are aligning well. So I just need to screw it in right now. That's about it. It was not that hard, was it, guys? I needed to find the screws to mount the motherboard, and they are in the toolbox for the case. I found them. Okay, so these screws, 9 of them, screws for motherboard mounting. And here they are, mixed with these other screws, but the screws for the motherboard are those small ones. So I'm going to get them out. Let's use them. So again, you should not over tighten the screws on the motherboard, so we don't crack it. Please be careful screwing these screws, because you can very easily damage your motherboard. Okay, and here's this extra screw space mounted with this added spacer screw hole part. So now we have 10 screws securing the motherboard. Before we are going to mount the AIO radiator up here, we should probably connect the CPU power cables into these 2 sockets, while we still have access to them, because once the radiator is going to be there, it's pretty thick, it's going to be hard to connect these cables. There's one more connector on this board that we are going to use, and I believe this is this AIO pump connector. We will need this for our AIO cooler. Regarding other cables, we should be able to get to them even after the radiator is mounted. So there are two very similar cables with the PSU. One of them is the CPU cable, and this is needed to power the CPU. The other one is a PCIe Express cable, which is usually used to power the GPU. They are very similar. Actually, the end that goes to the PSU itself is exactly the same. Yeah. Just different number, but it's exactly the same. And these are almost identical as well, except that the PCIe Express cable is made out of two parts. One of them is like 2-pin, and the one is 6-pin, while the CPU cable is made out of two parts too, but both of them are 4-pin. Yeah, so it's like 4-pin plus 4-pin, and the PCIe Express cable is 2-pin by 6-pin. So don't mix them up. This goes to the CPU power socket on the motherboard. I have actually two of them. I'm going to connect two of them. On the PSU, these 5 sockets are needed for the CPU power cable and the GPU power cable, or PCIe Express power cable. So make sure you stick the correct end of this CPU power cable into the PSU. All right? And actually it's not even possible to put this end, which goes to the motherboard, into here because the shape of the pins does not match. But the other end of it should match just fine. All right, so let's take this and push it in. Just make sure you put it in correctly. And you have to push it in really hard. Yeah. All right. That's that. And now I'm going to route these cables up through this hole. Okay, on second thought, I actually need to reroute these cables via this hole and not this one, because they are not long enough to be able to be routed nicely from here along the top. We are learning from our mistakes, right? And sometimes just experimenting and figuring out stuff along the way. So nothing new. Let's see if it's going to be better this way. It should be though, according to my calculations. So now let's connect this one first again. And then the other one. All right. So I think we are ready to mount the radiator now. What we can do firstly is remove the top cover of the case. And firstly, we can actually prepare the mounting mechanism. And then we can mount the radiator and at the end the pump. So let's now prepare the mounting mechanism. I'm going to unscrew the original pieces of metal over here, which we will not need anymore because we will replace them. So we are going to need these two metal support bars and then these spacers and screws. Let's put the plastic spacers to their designated locations. Don't forget to look at these metal support bars and read the letters. This stands for L left and the other one has right on it. So if you are looking at your motherboard upright, then, you know, mount the left one on the left and the right one on the right. I made a mistake and now I need to fix that. I already mounted the right one and now I'm going to mount the left one. Now they are stable. We are looking at the motherboard upright and the left metal support bar for the pump is on the left side and the right is on the right side. So we just need to mount the radiator, and the side with the tubes is going to the front of the PC. It's going to be tight, I believe. And I need to be also careful not to damage anything. This is going to be a little bit tricky. Maybe extra pair of hands would be useful in this situation. Unfortunately, I don't have those. I need to put the pump somewhere for now, not to damage anything. Okay, alright. And actually you should also make sure that you prepared the screws in advance, because I haven't, and now I'm struggling here a little bit. I'm attaching this radiator to the case, but not permanently right now, or not tightly, just so I have some attachment points and I can move it around a little bit and put it into its real designated place where it should be, or where I decide it will be. So for now, I'm just attaching these screws loosely here. Now it's roughly holding up, so I can actually position it. For example, these screw holes were not visible, so I need to move this area a little bit back. Maybe I can move it as far as it goes to the back. I think that would be the best idea. Alright. And I'm going to mount it in place, just like this. All the screws are now loosely screwed in. I'm going to change the position of this case upright. So can I actually shift the AIO where I want it, you know, a little bit to the back, a little bit to the back, and then towards me, and then fix it in place like this. Needs a lot of screws because it's quite heavy. Needs to be tight because it's heavy, just as I said. Seems to be in place now. We can actually put the top back, and let's pray that it will still fit on top of it, because the screws are sticking out just the time. Okay, it still fits perfectly. So the radiator is now mounted. Looks like this. Before we move further, we actually have to decide what kind of cables are we going to use for this part of the cooler. Because this cooler comes with like two different pairs of cables. So this one, if we use this one, we can control everything like at the same time. Like to control the pump speed, to control the fans, and to control the VRM fans. So with one cable we'll be able to control all of them, but just like the same way. They cannot be controlled individually. Or we can choose this other cable, which is like splitting to 3 different headers, as you can see: pump, VRM, and fan. And initially I wanted to go with this single cable approach, but then I changed my mind, and actually I would like to control the pump speed, the VRM fan speed, and the radiator fan speed, like individually. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to connect this end of the cable into this pump heatsink contraption over here. Once this side of the cable is connected, you need to route the cables via this crack, just like the A-RGB cable is routed, because later on it will be really hard to route it. It was quite easy to do, so this is how it looks like. One more note regarding this unified cable. For my motherboard, I should not use it in this CPU fan 1 header, because it only supplies 1 ampere and it might not be enough to drive the VRM fan, the radiator fans, and the pump itself. So in that case, I would maybe use CPU fan 2, because my motherboard supports 3 amperes on this other one. Like, you can choose to put this unified cable in whichever compatible, fan connector on controller. It does not really matter, because you can set it up in the BIOS, what it should do, how it should behave. You just have to make sure that the motherboard socket itself supports enough amperes for it to drive everything. Now I'm using these split cables. So I'm going to stick the VRM cable into the CPU fan 1. I'm going to stick the fan cable, which I'm missing. Yeah, the fan cable into CPU fan 2, right next to the CPU fan 1. And the pump cable into the AIO pump header, which is this gray one, next to the 2 CPU fan headers. So that's my plan. Before I mount the pump to the CPU, I'm going to clean them. And since I bought an extra package of thermal paste MX6 that included extra cleaning pads, I'm going to utilize at least those cleaning pads, because I already have an MX6 thermal paste that came with the cooler. Actually, I did not know that, so I bought extra, but I can utilize the cleaning pads at least right now. And also don't forget to peel away this protective layer and clean this side as well. I rubbed this part and cleaned up. Now it's not clean because I touched it, but you just need to rub it a little bit. Like this, okay, should be clean. I also need to clean the CPU part here. Just rub it slightly. And that's about it. You need to wait a few seconds or a minute to this cleaning agent to dry out. And then we can apply the thermal paste Arctic MX6 onto the CPU. So I waited a little bit for the cleaning agent to dry, and now there are 2 recommended approaches to use the Arctic MX6 thermal paste. One of them is the P size amount in the middle, or an X shape. I'm going to use the P size amount thingy because I usually do that and it usually works well. Just a little P sized amount in the middle. That should be plenty. You can still use this later. And now here's the hard part of it. I have heard that it's a little bit hard to align this pump on the CPU. So the trick is to like put pressure on every part of this pump when I'm mounting it. That's what people recommend, and they also recommend to like start from the side and try to like hit with the screw the hole first and then the other hole. Yeah, and it's not aligning for me, so I think I need to use a different approach here and just try to get both holes. Okay, I think I got both of the holes. So now what I should do is hold it on every side. So somehow hold it on every side. I'm using equal pressure. And then screw these screws in and alternate between them. And you need to alternate between one and the other screw. And just slowly tighten it up. So both screws are now tight. I alternated between them until they were tight. I used a bit of force, but you don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to underdo it either. So just use a bit of force until you cannot screw the screw more in, okay? But not too much force. Now, what we can do is install the VRM fan, which will go on top of this. And as you can see, there is a little bit of thermal paste just coming out at the side, but just a little bit. That's completely fine. But before I attach the VRM fan, we have to peel this off, right? That's it. It has some magnets on it, so it should stick to those screws. Just trying to align it. Okay. So it's just magnetically attached there. That's all it is. Nice, so we can easily remove it if we need to fiddle with cables later on. Good. Now I'm going to connect the cables of the cooler, and actually I'm going to round them just under the RAM, and I need to connect them up. So again, I wanted to put the VRM fan into the CPU, one header. It's going to be a little bit challenging because I mounted the AIO and yeah, I did not connect these cables. Maybe I should have done this as well. Let's see. That's VRM fan. What do we have here? Yes, now the radiator fan goes next to it, just like this, and then the pump, which goes next to those two guys, and there we are, everything connected. Now, not everything, actually we are missing the RGB header, so this needs to be connected as well. It has like two pins over here and one lonely pin on this side, and this needs to be connected into addressable RGB, and those addressable RGBs have 3 pins as well, so that's how you can, you know, match it up and pair it up and know how to connect it. So the lonely pins goes to the right. And there we are, it's connected. The cooler is finally mounted, my first AIO. Well, we don't know whether it works yet, so it's gonna be a surprise. So right now I routed those cooler fans under this part of the case. Let's see how it works out when we mount the RAM and the other cables. Okay, so before mounting the RAM, I'm actually going to connect up all the remaining cables to the motherboard, because I'm afraid that if I connect the RAMs here, it's going to be hard to connect these cables. I need some clearance there, and RAM is easier to mount, even if the cables are there. Since I don't yet have a GPU, I'm waiting for the next generation of GPUs from AMD and NVIDIA to come up in January, and then I'm going to buy one. So there is only this motherboard power cable that I need to connect, and then the cables from the front panel. And this will go to the motherboard itself, and this other side will go to the PSU, and it should go through this hole over here. Yeah, and it's not turned the right way around, so I need to actually rotate it. Now it's turned the correct way, and I'm going to connect it here. It's in there. We have this HD audio cable here, and I don't know. Yeah, this is from the bottom fans, so we need to connect this to the motherboard as well, and then we will sort out everything, the front panel, this massive cable over here. So firstly, I'm going to use, different zip ties, not these cables over here. So let's just firstly free up. Alright, cable is freed up. Chassis fan 1 and chassis fan 2, and over here at the leftmost it says HD audio. HD audio should go here, and it's again straightforward to tell where it goes because it's missing one pin, and the header on the motherboard is missing one pin again, so you just need to align it and stick it in there. Alright, that should be it. The bottom fans will go into chassis fan 2. And again, you can just put it like in one way because it has these plastic little thingies, guides on it. So you must match it with the black plastic part on the motherboard header. There it is. Now, from the chassis we have a bunch of cables. So there are these USB cables, I believe, and then we have, a front panel. So it has only two cables. This is only for the power switch. And then we have the fans and the RGB from the fans. So that's about it. We need to connect these up. So I already pre-routed some of the front panel cables where they approximately need to go. And we forgot to connect this part of the motherboard power connector, so we need to connect it. And there is a clear marking on the PSU where it needs to go. Fortunately, it says motherboard, so yeah, that's good, I suppose. So we can just put it in there. Well, okay, one and the second, and that's about it. Over here we have the front panel connector. It says front panel, and again one of the pins is not here, so and on my motherboard there is this header saying front panel, so I'm going to connect it there, and I know which way because it's missing one pin too. That's it, front panel is connected, so the power button now should work. Then here we have the fan cable from the front fans, again with these plastic guides. and an RGB header from the front end. Again, like there is one pin missing. And I'm going to connect the fan header to the chassis fan 1 connector on the motherboard. And because of these guiding plastics, I know where to connect it. That's it, done. And then the last one is going to be the, what you call it, addressable RGB, and I'm going to connect it to the addressable RGB LED 1 header. Again, because of those pins, I know, or it's quite obvious how it should fit there. It's just sometimes a little bit tricky to get there. Okay, there we are. So those are the front panel cables, almost all of them, because these USB cables are still missing. So I was thinking where I'm going to route them through. Here they are, and the motherboard power cable. So this one and this one. The big one is for the front panel's USB-A ports, and the smaller one is for the USB-C port. This is quite clear how it should be connected again, because it has some plastic guideline on top of it, and I have only one of these connectors where it can fit, but I guess it would be better to route it through the same hole as the motherboard power cable. I'm going to do that right now. It just makes much more sense. All right, so I can connect it now like this. Here we are, nice click. And this other connector, oh, I did not initially know how should I connect it, but I guess it has a little guideline, plastic guideline here as well, in a sense that, I don't know guys if you can see it, but one of the sides of this plastic is, in one corner is thicker than in the other three. The lower, like bottom right corner right now, is thicker than the other three. So I guess this is the guide that we should stick to. And the header on the motherboard should probably have something similar. I will try to zoom on in. Okay, so as you can see, it seems to be thicker in the bottom right corner. Just over, yeah, here. It zoomed in too much, my finger is big. But yeah, so it probably should go this way. Okay, there was a nice click as well, so now the USB cables are connected. So all the cables are now connected. We should do some cable management, but before we do cable management, we should probably try to boot up the system and see if we have any warning LED colors on the motherboard. And no, we will not be able to boot up the system yet because we forgot to install RAMs. So we first need to do this, and then we should try to boot up the system before we start with cable management. Alright, so let's install the RAM. There is a certain way how you should mount them. Your motherboard manual should describe it, like if you have sticks of two, well, a pair where you should put them. I read the manual of my motherboard, so I know where should I put them. And also one side of the RAM stick is actually longer. The connector is longer than the other one. So it should fit only one way. Okay. And before you mount it, you have to ease this mechanism, like on both sides of the RAM, and we are going to mount one stick into the rightmost slot and the other one to this one over here. So let's start with the rightmost slot. And I'm installing it incorrectly because I'm looking at the pins and I see that there's a misalignment. This crevice over here is not fitting, so I need to turn them around. So this is the way they should be installed, or this is the way this stick should be installed. Now if I'm checking this crevice, yes, now it seems to be fitting. Is it? Just double checking, yeah. So once it's fitting, you just make sure all the cables are away from it so you don't pinch them there, and you just push down and you hear these nice clicks, which means the safety mechanism is on. Now let's do the same with the second stick. So just push down again, hear two nice clicks, and that's that. RAM is installed. So after the RAM is installed, and I forgot to remove this plastic from the cooler, actually, okay. This is fine now as well. So firstly, we should see if the system is starting up, if it's doing something, if the LED indicators on the motherboard are showing some error or not. Just before we do the cable management, because it would be a pity if we did the cable management and then we realize we did something incorrectly and, you know, we need to fix it. So, okay, it's lighting up right away. So it means the PSU is on. I guess I should push the power button at the top of the front panel. I hear the pump. Oh, the RGB is on. That's cool. And up there you see some LED diodes, and we should check the colors of them and check in the manual of the motherboard what's wrong. So test number 2, I'm going to focus on the LEDs now a little bit more. Alright, so CPU red, RAM blinking yellow, which is fine, it's draining so far. And it switches to green boot and then to yellow white GPU, because I don't have a GPU and then I don't have a boot drive yet. Yeah, everything looks fine. All the fans are spinning and all the lights are on. Cool. So the test boot was successful. Now we can manage the cables, and after we can install Windows. Let's look at the situation. Fortunately, there are some Velcro strips provided with this case and other cable ties that we can utilize, and we are going to do so. So let's look at this messy situation. There's quite a lot of cables on the other side. We should pull them back to be here, because this side will not be visible. On the other side we have a glass panel. Okay, that should be enough. So we need to put them somewhere. It's a question where. Before we do that, maybe we should attach these cables to the bottom. Yeah, that would not hurt at all, I would say. Let's do that. At least some of them. Okay, be careful not to cut away the cable, just about just a cable tie. All right, cut away a little bit more from it. Let's see what else we can do. So we have these cables here from the fan cooler. We should put them behind bars, or behind local strip, which is prepared for us over here. Okay, it should be fine, I believe. And on the other side I'm going to tuck them under the RAM, and then these cables need to go from the top, lock them in over here. Okay, this is fine. We can lock in the USB cables, but we can lock in a lot of cables down here, and then we can lock in some cables here as well. I don't know where they are going to fit. I will try to fit them, but it might be challenging. We are still going to need the PCIe Express power connectors when the GPU arrives, and they are up here. So and just flatten everything out. Alright, so this is what's called cable management. Yeah, maybe it's not that pretty, but it will not be visible from this side. Honestly, I think it's pretty good though. Still, as I said, we will still need power connectors for the GPU, but I guess there will be space for them over here. Let's look at the visible side of this case now. Yeah, looks good, I would say. At this point. Yeah, this is going to be hidden by the pump anyways, so I think it looks good. I think we are done. So once again, the back side of the cable management, or the back end, let's call it the back end. Let's see the front end. No cables are sticking into the fans. Now we can put back the side panels and install windows. Will it fit? Oh yeah, no issues actually. Yeah, it's flat. The left is turned on or off. I think it's off this way. I think this is on. Oh, honestly, I should try. I need the help of a screwdriver over here. Peel it off. Yeah, I think there might be one layer of protection in the inside as well. Okay. Once again, test. Well, we must not forget to test all the ports, you know, the ports at the back of the motherboard, the ports on the front panel once we install Windows. Here we are in the BIOS connected to the integrated graphics via the mainboard's HDMI port. And one of the first things that we would like to do is check whether everything is fine. So as you can see, we are running BIOS 3.16. This should be the one that we installed. And we also have 32 gigabytes of RAM, currently running at 4800 megahertz. So the EXPO, AMD EXPO profile is not enabled, and this is what we want to enable. It's also correctly detected our processor. So here we have AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D. So to enable EXPO profile, we need to go into OC Tweaker over here, and then here we have DRAM profile configuration, and here we can choose DRAM profile setting. We can choose EXPO 6000, right? And then we can just say exit, save changes, and exit. Here are all the changes that are going to happen with this profile configuration. So just changing this profile changes all these settings automatically for us. Let's see when the system restarts what's going to happen. So it took a while for it to boot. And now if we check the RAM speed, it's 6000. So it seems AMD EXPO has been successfully enabled. I forgot to mention that after changing the RAM profile to EXPO, it takes a little bit longer for it to boot because it needs to retrain the memory, and it took longer to retrain the EXPO memory. But one more interesting thing to check is the hardware monitor over here, where we can see the CPU temperature, the motherboard temperature, and we can also see that the fan headers or the headers on the motherboard that we used for the fan control are actually active. Okay, so for example, we have CPU fan 1 speed over here, 1000 RPM, then CPU fan 2 speed, yeah. So these are all active. Then the chassis fan 1 speed, which should be the front fans. Actually, the CPU 2 fans are the fans on the radiator, and the CPU 1 fan is the fan on the CPU itself. And then the chassis fan 1, as I said, it's the fans on the front panel. Chassis fan 2 are fans at the bottom. So these are all working and showing up in hardware monitor, which is good, which is what we wanted. And also the AIO pump header is showing up here at 2816 RPM. And if you scroll lower, you can actually change profile for different fans over here. So it's like silent, standard, performance mode, and full speed. And you can also, make a custom one where there are certain points that you can modify. But let's just switch this back to silent as it was. And then in case, you put your pump header into the CPU fan 2 switch, you can actually change it here to water pump. But let's keep it as it is because that's how we set it up. And if we go into this fantastic software, it's really nice. We are actually able to, check our fan configuration and fan profile. So CPU fan 1 is on silent, 2 is on standard, and standard means that it's monitoring CPU in this case, but we can also switch it to monitor the motherboard temperature. And based on the motherboard temperature, its performance will raise or fall. let's see, the chassis fan 1 is set to motherboard temperature. Okay, chassis fan 2, again motherboard temperature. I guess CPU fan, yeah, okay. And then chassis fan 3, this is not active as far as I know. And the AIO pump is at full speed. Yeah, customize, okay, customizing it, you can customize it like on your own. Here are some points in the graph that you can probably move around. And then there is fan tuning. I don't know what is this. Okay, maybe do not run this fan tuning mode, it seems to be broken. Oh, after I run it, it changed the configuration of these fans. Let me check. Yeah, so this does not seem right. Because, you know, at higher temperature, actually the fan speed is now lower for some reason, which is just strange. Yeah, fortunately you can discard the changes by just discard changes and exit. You know, otherwise if you would just say changes, you can see how many things it changed regarding these fans. So let's discard those changes and restart.
To prepare for Windows installation, we need three things. Firstly, we need an official license key, and you can buy one on the official Microsoft store or on some third-party store where the prices are much cheaper. Secondly, you need to download the official software from the Microsoft portal called Media Creation Tool. And thirdly, you need a USB drive. After you have downloaded the software, just follow the steps. It should be quite easy, and I also included these steps as images in this video with the result of these steps, which is an installation USB.
Now we need to install BIOS, so I have flashed Windows on this USB stick drive. I'm going to stick it into one of the USB ports and install the BIOS. So let's stick it in there. There. Now let's restart the system. So yeah, discard changes and exit. And if everything goes well, then the Windows install setup should show up. And here we are. I'm actually from Slovakia. But this can be later configured in the Windows itself. Okay, I would like to install Windows 11. Yes, everything will be deleted, sure, but I have nothing installed on this drive. It's a new drive. And I need to enter the product key. Alright, so I entered the product key. Let's accept the licenses and terms. Searching for disk. So there is, okay, this is the USB drive with the installation. I don't know what is this one. Okay, it's in the USB as well. It's because I used that Microsoft Windows setup tool or whatever. So this is our NVMe SSD drive. We want to create some partitions in it. And the way I'm going to do it is actually I'm going to create two partitions. On one of them I will keep Windows with some free space, and the other one I can just load up with whatever I want. Alright, so I will create a 500 gigabyte partition for my operating system and some of the apps, and the rest will be for, you know, gaming and data. It's really hard to tell what is a good split and whether you should split it or not at all. I just like my things organized a little bit better, and in case my OS goes wrong and I need to install it, I can still keep my data on D. And also, if I'm doing some operations on the C drive, like copying and whatnot, it's good to have this extra space for copying operations, for example. Windows automatically created on the X0 these partitions. This is going to be for, you know, the operating system and application, just as I said, and this is needed by Windows for some reasons. And the rest I'm going to allocate to a separate partition. It takes a while to apply. And here we are. Okay, so we have two primary partitions. This is going to be C and this is going to be D. This is how I like it. Now let's install, of course, Windows on C. It should be fast, as far as I know. Okay, so my computer is restarting again. There is a feature on ASROCK motherboards on mine called auto driver installing, and it should prompt me to automatically install drivers once I boot into Windows or once I restart into Windows again. So I'm going to try that feature as well. And here we are. Windows is loading. I will go through these settings on my own, I guess. Welcome. Yay, thank you. Okay, I will sign in on my own and get back to you guys. Now, an important choice in the first setup of Windows is the choice whether you want to send diagnostic data to Microsoft. I personally only choose the required only data because I don't want to share unnecessary data with Microsoft. They are forcing us to use our online accounts anyways, to use our Windows, so they are forcing a lot of stuff on us, which is not nice. That's why it's hard to support them. And this one again, no. Now this is a little bit different because they are going to like promote some stuff on me anyway, so do I want to be less relevant or at least a little bit relevant? In this case, it's better if it's a little bit more relevant, if they are forcing this on us anyways. Let's say gaming. Okay, I don't need this, so I will skip this. So no, I don't want to. Okay, so after 1 month of free trial, I will be charged €100 per year. Thanks, but no. Okay, I can use the web versions of it. There are a lot of ads and things that they are pushing on you when you are installing Windows, even though you already paid for the operating system. Yeah, it's not nice really. Just let me do what I want and don't push anything on me. That would be the best. Finally. After I finally went through all the trouble of setting up Windows 11, ASROCK's software or BIOS or motherboard is already prompting me to auto install drivers. And I want this, so let's do this. Okay, so a new application or new icon is on the desktop. It's also launching on its own. It already detected the latest versions of drivers that I need. Everything is already pre-selected as well, so I just click on update. What a great feature. That's very nice of them. Okay, so after some time, installation is successful, it seems, which is great. And if I want to update my drivers again, I have to change it in the BIOS settings, it seems. So probably it's disabled automatically and I have to switch it back to enable in the tools. So to get into BIOS, if you restart, you have to press delete button quickly, F1 or F2 usually. I'm in BIOS and let's check out tools. Yeah, indeed, auto installer is now disabled. So if I want to have this prompt again to update drivers, I just need to enable it, boot into Windows, and it will prompt me again. So there are a few things that you should change in Windows right away if you are a gamer. That is because it will regain some performance, but also mouse acceleration is something that you want to turn off. Let's see, yeah, enhanced pointer decision. This needs to be turned off. You want raw input from your mouse. And then you have to search for core isolation and you want to turn this off. Yeah. We are back in Windows after the restart, so let's search for core isolation again. Memory integrity needs to be turned off. And there is one more thing that needs to be disabled, and that is virtual machine platform. We can find this in turn Windows features on and off. Search, let's try it, turn Windows features on and off. Virtual machine platform should be off, and it is off, so everything is fine. Depending on your preferences, there might be two more things that you want to change. For me, for example, one of them would be to move the taskbar, so align it to left. Let's move the taskbar to the left. Taskbar alignment left. And next, you can change to log in with your local account instead of, you know, your Microsoft account, which I would prefer. So I'm going to change it. I need to go into accounts. Your info, sign in with a local account instead. Yeah, this is what I want. Great. Sign out and finish. Wonderful. Oh yeah. No PIN needed. It says Patronout local account. I'm planning to do some follow-up videos. As you might have noticed, this build does not have a GPU yet. That's because I'm waiting for the release of the new next generation cards from NVIDIA and AMD next year in January. So we will have a follow-up video regarding the graphics card in this system around that time. But before that, I would like to create a follow-up video regarding performance tuning and optimization of the Ryzen CPU in this system, and also about tweaking the RGB lights in this system, and also possibly fans. So stay tuned, and it was nice to see you guys again after such a long time. I'm out. Bye.